Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys in their Week 9 matchup played November 8th, 2015. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis for this NFC East rivalry game. And in the first quarter, with about 7 minutes still left in the first, Matt Castle hit Cole Beasley for a 5-yard touchdown pass. Dan Bailey added the extra point, and the Cowboys were up 7-0. That would be the only score in the first. Then in the second, with about 9 minutes left before halftime, DeMarco Murray scored on a 1-yard touchdown run. Caleb Sturgis added the extra point, and this game was tied at 7. So it was tied at 7 at the half. Then in the third quarter, with about 8.5 minutes left still in the third, Ryan Matthews scored on a 6-yard touchdown run, and Caleb Sturgis added the extra point, and now the Eagles were ahead for the first time in this game, up 14-7. But then with 2 minutes left in the third, Matt Castle found Cole Beasley for the second time in the end zone in this game, a 17-yard touchdown pass. Bailey added the extra point, and this game was tied up at 14 apiece. So that would be the score after 3. Then in the fourth quarter, Jordan Hicks would pick off Castle and run it back 67 yards for the pick six and the defensive touchdown. Sturgis added the extra points, and the Eagles were back up by 7 with the score 21-14. Then, less than 2 minutes later, Dez Bryant would score on an 18-yard touchdown pass from Matt Castle, and this game was now tied at 21 after the extra point by Bailey. Then, about 3.5 minutes later, with 7.5 left still in this game, Caleb Sturgis hit a 31-yard field goal, and now the Eagles were up by 3 with the score 24-21. But then with 3 minutes left in the game, Dan Bailey hit a 41-yard field goal, and that made this game tied at 24 apiece. Then a minute later, less than 2 minutes, Caleb Sturgis hits a 53-yard field goal, and the Eagles are up 27-24. But the Cowboys refused to go out in regulation. With 2 seconds left, Dan Bailey hit a 44-yarder, and this game was tied at 7 and going to overtime. So the game went to overtime, and in overtime, the Eagles got the ball first, and it had originally looked like Matthews fumbled the ball, but they ended up challenging, and they ended up reversing the call, and so the Eagles would keep the ball. And on the very next play, Sam Bradford hits Jordan Matthews for a 41-yard touchdown as Matthews made the moves and he went to the end zone. And that would do it, as the Eagles win in a walk-off in overtime 33-27. And Tony Romo just looked heartbroken as he was not able to play, and there's nothing he can do as he's forced to just watch the Cowboys lose every game without him. Now 6 in a row. They're 2-6, 1-4 at Dallas. This one just slipped right out of their hands, as they really had a real close chance at this one. I mean, this was about as close as it gets. It went to overtime, and they could not win it. And the Eagles are now 4-4, 2-3 on the road, and the Eagles trail the Giants by just a half a game, as the Giants have not yet had their bye week, as they're sitting in first place at 5-4, with the Eagles at 4-4, having already had their bye. So the Cowboys, it's a heartbreaker for Cowboys fans, of course. If you're going for the Eagles, then you must be ecstatic, because they pulled this one off. And it's a crazy game down to the wire. We saw 26 points scored in the fourth quarter alone, after only 28 points being scored throughout the first 3 quarters combined. So it was a wild fourth quarter, wild finish in this game. We saw a bunch of field goals there down the stretch in the last 7.5 minutes. 4 field goals, 3 field goals in the final 3 minutes. It was just back and forth, and really there wasn't a whole lot of defense in this game. These two teams combining for 60 points, and both teams putting up big numbers on the stat sheet. And let's look at the numbers. Sam Bradford, 25 for 36, 295 pass yards, and a touchdown. He also lost a yard on a carry. DeMarco Murray, he had 161 total yards in this game in his return to Dallas. 18 carries, 83 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. He also had 6 receptions for 78 yards. And Ryan Matthews, 11 carries for 67 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Matthews, 9 receptions, 133 yards, and a touchdown to be the game's leading receiver. And then we look over on the Dallas end. Matt Castle, 25 for 38, 299 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, the 1 interception. Darren McFadden, 27 carries, 117 rushing yards. Castle also had 17 yards on the ground off of 2 carries. The Cowboys had 2 100-yard receivers. Cole Beasley, 9 receptions, 112 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Dez Bryant, 5 receptions, 104 yards, and a touchdown. Jason Witten, 6 receptions for 43 yards. And he'd been almost like horse collar tackle to the ground coming off the line before the field goal that tied the game and sent it into overtime. So that was actually, the Eagles almost didn't need overtime. Of course, that penalty only gave them 5 yards for the Cowboys, and Bailey probably would have made it anyway. But that was a pretty bad penalty there. I think it was Jenkins that did that. But we look at the kickers. Dan Bailey, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 3 for 3 on the extra points. As both kickers were perfect in this game. Sturgis, 2 for 2 on the field goals, 3 for 3 on the extra points as well. And on defense, for Philadelphia, Graham had 2 sacks. Kendricks had a sack. Barwin had a sack, as the Eagles had 4 sacks in this game. Hicks had an interception, and Graham also had 2 forced fumbles. And for the Cowboys, Hardy had a sack. And let's look at the first downs. Both teams, 25 first downs apiece. On third down, the Cowboys, 8 of 16, 50% on third down conversions. Both teams went for it twice on fourth down, and they both converted 100% for both teams on fourth down. The Eagles were 3 of 13, converting just 23% on third down. Look at net yards total net yards, 459 for Philadelphia, 411 for Dallas. On the ground, the Eagles 172 netted, the Cowboys 134. Through the air, Philadelphia 287, as Bradford was sacked once, losing 8 yards, and for Dallas 277 netted. Castle sacked 4 times, losing 22 yards. And the penalties in this game, 10 against the Eagles, 70 penalty yards, 8 against the Cowboys, 58 penalty yards. The Cowboys did have a pair of fumbles, but they did not lose either. And in the red zone, the Cowboys were actually perfect. They were 3 for 3 in the red zone, 100%. The Eagles 2 for 3, 66%. And the Cowboys' time of possession, 38 minutes and 19 seconds, 25 minutes, 42 seconds for Philadelphia. Of course, the Eagles, they don't really care about the clock per se with the style of offense. And yeah, the Eagles did get it going offensively. They put up decent numbers, but so did the Cowboys. There was a lot of offense in this game. And, look at the Cowboys. What would they have to do? Castle, 1 yard shy of 300 yards passing. He had 3 touchdowns. They had a 100-yard rusher in McFadden. They had 200-yard receivers in Beasley and Bryant. But they just cannot buy a win without Romo. And you got to wonder what would be if Romo had been there. Even over the last 6 games, they definitely wouldn't be 2-6. And the Eagles, they're at 4-4. They're right there in a position to take this division. They've been going through some struggles. They've got a lot of new personnel. Of course, they've got the former Cowboy running back, the rushing champion from last year, DeMarco Murray. So he had a big game here in Dallas in his return. Although it's just 83 rushing yards, 161 total yards in the game. He did have that touchdown as well. But of course, it was Matthews and Matthews, Ryan and Jordan, no relation, but Jordan Matthews with that touchdown, the game winner, the 41-yard touchdown in overtime, put him over 100 yards on the game. They said not a lot of defense. Of course, the Eagles, though, getting the pressure on Castle. They did force that turnover, and they had 4 sacks in the game. So they got the job done regardless. The players on the field are the players on the field, and that's the game you play, and that's how you got to do it. At the end of the day, there's really no excuses. So the Philadelphia Eagles just a half a game out of first place. They have the chance to be tied once, the bye week and everything. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great week and had a great weekend and enjoy all the sports.